Okay, here we go. We are back here on the Lynne Hayes Freeland Show. So, as I said, I mean, 2020 has been like a year unlike any other. We're going to end up this year, and we will still have several months of this pandemic left. At the same time, there are issues within our community that haven't gone away. There have been issues with violence that sadly are still very much a part of our community. There are other issues that we still have to deal with. What are your priorities when we start this year in January, separate from the pandemic? What are the issues that you think are going to be the most pressing in our community?
Yeah, I'm still starting off the year like we were, Ed, Summer, and Austin, and myself, and some
Hmm.
others. I'm still on the criminal justice, social justice reform. I think that's absolutely necessary. That's a top priority for us, for me. I think this issue around and part of that, I know some really have not really embraced it, but part of that is also this fight to legalize adult use because I see that as a criminal justice, social justice reform.
Hmm.
And I think we have to dig back in and get deep into our future as a state, because as you're starting to see now, we're starting to stop projects on PennDOT. We're starting to talk about cutting services and potentially cutting vital infrastructure work that we need to grow. So this whole issue around our finances and how do we support our most vulnerable and how do we support our small businesses. And I definitely think we need to have a more full discussion around how do we break down systemic racism and institutionalized racism from a governmental and policy perspective. So those are my priorities for the upcoming year.
Yeah, I agree. I think social justice is major. I think that's something that we definitely got to focus on. And I think the time is now to do it. I think, like a lot of things that I believe the protesters in the street have done a wonderful job and open up opportunity inside state government, local government to do some phenomenal changes. And I think that it's time. I think that we need to get rid of some of these oppressed laws. I mean, in the state of Pennsylvania, you can get convicted of a crime, go to jail, find out to be innocent, get out, and you still got the crime on your back. I mean, there are so many things in social justice that we have to change that this year gives us an opportunity to do. But also, I think that we really need to talk about education and after school programming. Because right now, if this pandemic is going to be around for a while, and it will, the reality is how do we redesign an education system to be able to fit today's needs? We all three of us have talked about it on this call today or on this Zoom today about what's going on with families, and we need to pay attention to that and start redesigning a system that addresses those needs. Because if we don't, then we're going to have a whole generation growing up lacking the education support that wasn't there before the pandemic. Think about what it looks like now that we're in the pandemic. So I think that from an education standpoint, we also need to make sure that we're redesigning a system that fits today's time. And we need to gird our after school programs because at the end of the day, this community got to take care of community. As long as mom got to go to work, dad got to go to work, you know what I mean? As long as that's the reality is we need a system that can fit that. So there's a whole lot to talk about. And I agree with Jake. We have to talk about adult use cannabis and legalizing it. I think that's an issue. I think that, like I told people before, if you can tell me a time in American history where America didn't get high, then I could see not being for it. But if you can't never tell me a time in American history where people didn't get high, you got to explain to me why we incarcerate people, why we destroying lives. Generation after generation after generation. It doesn't make any sense. So we need to change and transform all those laws that have oppressed us over the years. But education is going to be critical.
And then last question, we got about a minute and a half left, and I apologize, there's not enough time to really get into it. We're at the beginning of December. Is there going to be help for people who are going to lose those unemployment benefits by the end of the month? Is there going to be a lifeline for them, do we think?
I'm
Tough
hoping that
question.
the congressional leaders will come together to do something. But if I was a betting man, I would say it's highly unlikely that there will
Mhm.
be any additional stimulus before the new year, the new administration. That's why I keep saying that as a state, we need to come up with some immediate funds and some ways to shift to support some of these emergency issues.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. Lots of tough issues, but we're glad we have you in Harrisburg fighting for us. It makes a big difference. And I appreciate the fact that you both, every time I call, you answer the phone and you're always available. And I appreciate you for that. So thanks so much for joining us today, helping
Hey,
us get
hey,
to get to the bottom of it. And if I don't see you before, have a great holiday season.
And
Same
happy
to
holidays.
you. Happy
All right.
holidays.
Thanks so much. We'll take a commercial break. We'll come back and wrap all this up in just a minute when the Lynne Hayes Freeland Show continues. Don't go away.